Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this webinar on nutrition for a healthy mind and a healthy body. Um, I'm so happy to see so many of you here again today with us. And this is a topic that a lot of us have been discussing for some time now. And I'm really excited to have my guest speaker here with me again today. My name is Elissa Makris. I'm a business psychologist at Thrive. And I have with me Ruth Bailey, who is a staff wellbeing officer for Derbyshire Community Health Services. Hi, Ruth. How are you?
Hi, Elissa. I'm really well, thank you. And thank you for having me here today. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So, yeah, the topics we will be discussing today is food for thought, food and the brain, gut health and mental health, the food mood connection. We'll talk a little bit about nutrients, and then we'll talk a little bit about learning to love food, the language and cultures that we have, and how we associate food, the way we talk about it, basically. And then reducing stress and forming healthy habits, as well as Ruth's practical tips that you can take home and apply immediately after this. So, just to give you a little bit of background about Ruth, who will be giving us all her insight, Ruth has a degree in nutrition and a diet and lifestyle. So, she will be able to give us the insights that we will need for today. I'll be asking her a lot of the different questions. And we will get to also your questions at the end of this webinar. So if you do have any questions, please do use the Q&A function, as well as the chat, to discuss anything amongst each other, and we will get to that at the end. But yeah, Ruth, would you just like to introduce yourself a little bit, talk a little bit about your experience and your background maybe?
Yeah, thank you, Elissa. And hello to everyone. Thank you for joining. So yeah, as Elissa beautifully really described me in a nutshell there, I guess my background is that I came from being a professional dancer for many years, and I experienced a really difficult eating disorder. For many years, I went through body image struggles. I really had a terrible relationship with food, and I was completely obsessed with food. So I just couldn't find that space in my head to just think about life or other relationships or family or loved ones. It was just all consumed with food thoughts and potential damaging behavior around food. So I had to leave the life that I knew for a lot of my life. Really was all to do with dance. And yeah, I went away when I was 11 years old to London to pursue my dream, and I left when I was about 23. So when I did leave, I went to university to study nutrition, diet and lifestyles, and I sort of reignited my passion for nutrition. And I knew I wanted to help other people. I knew I wanted to help others that may have been struggling with food. I knew I had that within me. I knew I had more to offer than just being someone who was disciplined with food and exercise. So hopefully I can share some of my wisdom today with some of you out there. Yeah,
Thanks, Ruth.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm so happy that you're here with us today. It's really great to hear you speaking about this with us as well, because last time you were here for the eating disorders webinar, and your insight has really touched a lot of people, and a lot of people felt like, they could either relate it to their own experiences, or they felt like they could talk about it more openly. So being able to also like learn about food in very different ways and our relationship with it helps us a lot to really get to understand ourselves as well. So yeah, I mean, let's just get straight into it so that we also have time for questions at the end. The first thing we really want to talk about is food for thought. So, the brain is the most metabolically active organ within the body. Even though it's really small, it uses up to 20 to 30% of the breakdown products of what we eat. So, when your brain is at rest, it uses 20% of what you've eaten, and when you're active, 25%. And let's say when you're stressed or focused, it can go up to 30% even. And studies have found that there is a direct relationship between the access to food and brain size as well. So larger brains in the humanoids are associated with the development of cooking skills, access to food, and energy savings. So there's this continuous interplay between the brain and the environment that we're living in. And of course, there's also physical influences like hormonal balances, fertility, bone health, and all of those things. But yeah, so this brings me on to my first few questions that I have for Ruth. So we do tend to focus on nutrition to fuel the body, and often we forget about the importance of nutrition for the brain. What happens to our brain when we don't get enough of these nutrients in our body?
So, like you said there, Elissa, I think the brain is very active. Even at rest, it's using up so much energy. And I think, trying to use so many nutrients to serve the brain and to really fuel the brain. I mean, our brain, obviously, we have to make so many decisions on a daily basis. And if we're not properly fueled, it can really impact on those that thought process behind our decisions. So it can, I wouldn't say shut down, but it really does have a severe impact on how we function, on how we think. And when I say think, I mean how we treat ourselves as well. So we can go into that negative mind space of we're not good enough, self-esteem, feeling quite low, low on energy, low on motivation. And I think I'm a firm believer that it all starts with, fueling our brains and our bodies with really good nutrients that we just need on a daily basis to function. And that goes for all the organs within our body as well. It's not just brain, but I think that is the main organ which obviously promotes health for all of our other internal systems as well. So yeah, it can be severely impacted if we don't give it the proper nutrition and the proper treatment that it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like so many things can be affected, of course. Your cognitive ability from day to day will decline, and it's quite also like emotionally upsetting. And we will talk about the emotional connection as well and the gut health in a little bit as well. So, would you say that it would make sense for people to think about their diet in a brain first type of way when it comes to nutrition?
Um, Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because I think it's very individual dependent. So for me, I know when I'm not feeling myself well, or I know when I'm lacking in energy because that part of my brain that makes decisions is not functioning very well. So I know that I need to steer clear of caffeine and make sure that I'm getting, some antioxidants in there to try and bring down that inflammation. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say that. Yeah, like I said, it's really difficult question to answer. But I think, you know, not just trying to think of the brain, I think trying to think of all the other organs internally as well. So nutrition for heart health, for lung health, for kidneys, for liver, and all the other systems, the metabolically active systems. So our bloodstream, even our blood sugar levels. So trying to think of it not just, you know, it's just for the brain, it's for all of the other systems that rely on good nutrition to function at optimal level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a holistic picture that we definitely have to look at. It's also quite interesting nowadays. We are really focusing a lot on prevention as well, and the right sort of nutrition and the right sort of diet helps with this prevention of certain diseases as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how different nutrients or the right sort of balance in the diet can help us against different types of diseases within our life?
Yeah, so there's ongoing research about this all the time, which makes nutrition so exciting, because it's constantly changing and the evidence that's coming out about this. I wouldn't say there's any specific foods that you'd need to eat every single day that would give you guaranteed protection against obtaining these sorts of diseases. But I truly believe that if you have a well balanced diet, it can really help prevent you from getting specific diseases. I think, if you were to ask me the question of what does health look like to you, a few years ago I would have said, well, if I look good on the outside. But actually thinking, I need so much nutrition every single day to do the things that I love to do every single day. So I know that if I'm getting a well balanced diet, and that includes good hormone levels, good sleep, lowering stress, promoting positive mental health, I think all of that sort of intertwines with good nutrition, because I don't believe you can have good nutrition without having all the other good profiles, if that makes sense. Because,
Yeah.
for example, poor sleep and a lot of stress can really affect on if we were to obtain any disease in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Like nutrition is one of the three pillars of health, of course, along with exercise and sleep and nutrition. Those three things, they come hand in hand and holistically as well. So as well, like we talk about promoting good sleep in other webinars as well, and we always focus on eating the right amount of food and not eating food, let's say 2 hours before you go to sleep, so that your hormone levels are not disrupted and you get a good night's sleep as well. So we do all interlink with each other as well. So this brings me then on to as well how the gut health links with emotional health as well. So food it doesn't just affect our cognitive processes, of course, it also affects our emotions. So there are several gut hormones that can enter the brain or are produced by the brain itself. And it's been said over the years that there's been a destruction of the gut microbiome linked to this industrial and agricultural revolution as we consume food that is more processed, high in sugar, alcohol, and caffeine. And these bacteria also mutate to stay alive. So some cravings come from nutrients and micronutrients we might be missing, while other cravings come from gut bacteria that might be trying to survive. So I really want to talk to you a little bit about all the things that we do love so much, the saturated fats like butter and cakes and cheese, and all the caffeine and sugar and carbohydrates, like all those things that we do crave. But at the same time, how they sometimes are quite harmful to us as well. So, what are the risks of having a diet that is predominantly made up of saturated fats?
Yeah, so there's again so much research and so much evidence that does suggest having a diet high in saturated fats and unhealthy fats promotes poor health on so many spectrums. I think, if I were to eat saturated fats every single day for every single meal, I would really start to feel the effects of that. And I don't just mean externally. Of course, that would impact maybe on weight gain and the external appearance, if that was important to you. But I think for me, it's more important on how those types of foods make me feel. So they make me feel very lethargic. My mood swings are quite bad. I talk negatively to myself as well, so I'll pick on my flaws maybe that I see more. I have poor sleep. I don't have enough energy to do the things that I'd usually want to do. So I think all of those things are so important to me. May not be important to other people, but I think, not just thinking about the disease and the impacts that it can have on you in the future. I think we have to prepare for that right now in the present. I think we have to think long term for nutrition. There's so much out there in the media at the minute about, how we can look good in lockdown and how we can enter back into normal life and feel good about our bodies and our minds, of course. But we don't want to think of nutrition as just short term. It's a daily process and it's something we have to work on every single day. So I did an experiment a few months back, and I just ate all the things I wanted to, which were primarily all the saturated fats, and I felt terrible. after the week was up, and it really made me think about, if you were to consume these things on a daily basis, long term, how would make you feel emotionally, mentally, physically, and it could potentially set you up for obtaining some harmful disease in the future.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And some
although those
people
things
say,
are,
oh,
sorry, Elissa.
go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say, although those things are really delicious, I do believe there's a, a, a point to have those in your diet. It's so important to take the pressure off from time to time and indulge in those things. But it's just about getting that balance right. And it's also the mindset that goes with that. So leaving the guilt behind if you choose to indulge, just being a human being, taking that pressure off. I think all those things promote good mental well-being as well as physical well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely be talking a lot about this kind of cultural and language that we use when we talk about how we perceive it. It's ingrained with us from childhood as well. And we'll definitely go into a deeper conversation into that in a second as well. So, can you give us some examples of maybe unsaturated fats that might be good for us or that might help?
So I think even talking about the topic of fats scares a lot of people, and I can completely understand why. I think a lot of that has to do with the media, social media as well. The term fat people really have a problem with, and I think it's just distinguishing the difference between healthy fats and not so healthy fats. So the saturated fats we've already spoken about, and all the delicious foods that make up those the saturated fats. Sorry, the unsaturated fats come from things like oily fish, avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, things like that, which really promote happy hormones. They promote good sleep. They give you great hair, skin, nails, all those things we need on a daily basis to function well as well. And I think they play a vital role in taking that inflammation down as well. So that's linked to the gut health piece that we'll come on to. But if you have severe inflammation in the body, that can really affect on your mental well-being also.
Yeah, absolutely. People have said that there's an elevated increase of major depression within the Western within the Western world at the moment, and a lot of people have linked that with consuming more saturated fats and the destruction of the gut microbiome that we were talking about here. So, how can we make sure that our gut microbiome stays healthy? Is there any specific foods that we can follow on or specific diets try out maybe?
Yeah, so I have an extended list really next to me just so that I don't forget any. But I would definitely say the kefir sort of prebiotic is really popular at the minute. Live yogurt, which contains healthy gut bacteria, which we all need. Sourdough bread as well is often a really good one. Almonds, avocados, olive oil, all those types of foods really promote good gut well-being. And they say that your gut is your second brain, so it's all connected. So if your gut profile really isn't healthy, you will know about it, and it will send signals all over the body, whether that's disturbed sleep, poor hormones, elevated moods, and it's just there's so many signals that we have to really be in tune with our body about. And you just have to really pay attention to those. I think I spent so many years ignoring that and ignoring those signals because I thought I knew best. Actually, your body knows best. And it's a really good way of just staying in tune with your body and practicing intuitive eating, which I'm sure we will come on to in a little bit. But I think it takes practice and it takes effort every single day to really listen to what your body's telling you. So if you're feeling a bit bloated, or if you're feeling, low in energy, or if you're feeling lethargic, it could be an indication that you have a lot of inflammation in the body, or you're not getting enough healthy fats in the diet, which can be quite scary because healthy fats actually contain the most calories per gram. So if you are on a specific way of living, say you're doing Slimming World or something that you're sort of living your daily life by, fats are sort of deemed really bad for you. And I really think that's a shame, because we're trying to create that healthy diet culture in food freedom, and just to fill your body with nutrition and nutrients that your body needs every single day without cutting things out. And if people do that, your body tells you. So if you were to cut out carbohydrates, for example, your body would be low in energy, and it would really have a hard time in doing the things that you love to do every single day, even functioning. It would tell you. And then that's when people pull on other nutrients, so caffeine, just to get them through. Actually, you're probably just needing to up your carbohydrate profile a little bit, but it takes practice in listening to what your body's needing and your body's signals. So yeah, I veered off that conversation there and that question, but I think it's important to note that there's a place for all nutrients in your diet, and whether that you're choosing to do low fat, still have some fats in there and hopefully be healthy fats. If you're choosing to do low carbohydrates, making sure that there are some carbohydrates even in the form of vegetables or fruits. And I think sometimes the diet culture and social media and media in general have had a way of skewing that vision for people, which is hard to get out of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just really love that term, food freedom. I don't know, I love that. That makes me feel like really happy with the idea of eating food, and that, you're free to really make up your diet as you wish, not prescribed by someone else how you should be eating. Food freedom is about listening to your body and really embracing that as well. You talked a little bit about carbs just now. And of course, carbs is a great source of energy, and the brain has a blood-brain barrier where carbohydrates can get through. So naturally, it wants to use carbs as its first source of energy, but they do have such a bad reputation. Why do you think that they have such a bad reputation even?
Yeah, I think coming from a place where, years ago I went through my eating disorder and I cut out all carbohydrates. Now, please don't do that. I would just put that out there. Please don't do that. And what I mean by that is I did not even eat vegetables that contain carbohydrates, or I probably just ate, a can of tuna a day, which just contained protein, and it was awful. And honestly, I could not get off the sofa because I had no energy, and I had poor skin. I was very dull. My hair was falling out. I had poor sleep. My emotions were here, there, and everywhere. I think people seem to think that by cutting carbohydrates out of the diet, they can achieve their goals. And you just have to try and flip that narrative. If your goal, for example, is to lose a bit of weight, all you have to do is just be in a calorie deficit. So work out your maintenance calories. Don't do it by the book, because that can create obsession, but just be aware of your daily intake, what that needs to be, and then just take a little bit off from that, or create that deficit with more output, so with more physical activity, and you will achieve your goal. It doesn't matter the makeup of your diet. If you're having a well-balanced diet, it's going to make you feel great overall. I would always recommend that. But carbohydrates are not magic. So by cutting them out, it doesn't mean that you're immediately going to achieve your dream body. You could achieve your dream body by just eating, chocolate all day. If you were in a calorie deficit, if you're eating chocolate, you'd still achieve that body. So it's, and I'm not recommending that. But I'm trying to shift that culture of thinking, but if I cut out fats, I will get to where I want to be. If I cut out carbohydrates, I'll get to where I want to be. actually I want to be asking the question, why do you feel you need to cut those out to get to where you want to be? And actually, what happens when you get to where you want to be? What happens next? Do you think that's sustainable? Because more likely than not, the answer is going to be no. I don't know anyone that can sustain a diet of no carbohydrates whatsoever. So you just have to shift your perceptions and really think, are your goals realistic, and how you're going to get there? What's the journey process going to be like? And what's life going to look like after you've achieved that? Are you going to be happy? Are you going to be thriving every single day? Are you going to be able to run around with your children or loved ones or partners and, going on adventures and going on holidays? Probably not if you don't have a lot of carbohydrates in your system, because like you said, they are the fuel source that the body uses for energy first. So if you were to cut out carbohydrates, your body would pull on the other fuel sources, so proteins and fats. But I definitely wouldn't recommend that, because that's not sustainable. And I think just going through what I've been through, I always think now long term, is that going to serve me in a year? Are my decisions now going to serve me in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If the answer is no, then I'm probably doing something unhealthy. So
Yeah.
it's just food for thought there, excuse the pun.
Yeah, exactly. Food for thought. And of course, it also definitely will affect your mood at some point if you keep stopping yourself from eating something that you might be craving. And craving is another thing that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. A little more, our body is missing it. So if we do have certain cravings, are there any sort of foods that help us to stay maybe satisfied for longer, that help us to not have cravings too many times throughout the day, or that just keep us fueled for longer?
So again, this is probably going to be this is a general answer. Nutrition, like I said right at the beginning, is very individual, and there's not a one size that fits all approach. I think for some people, they can work well with just having sort of 3 square meals a day and then a couple of snacks. Other people prefer to have 6 smaller meals. Other people do intermittent fasting. Other people like to go to bed on a fuller stomach. Other people don't find that comfortable. It really is just finding what works for you. And in terms of cravings, having a different perspective on everything now, I would always say go with your cravings, because your body is so intelligent, it will tell you when it's had enough. It's just whether you choose to listen to that message or not. So foods that will generally keep you fuller for longer are foods that are higher in protein or higher in healthy fats. So if you feel that you're lacking in energy, or you're just needing something to get you through the day, if you're implementing some snacks in the day in between meals, I would always suggest something that would be higher in protein, higher in healthy fats, and maybe some carbohydrates in there too. So you're getting a nice mix. But I would never say don't listen to your cravings, because that promotes negative, you know, a negative narrative in your mind, and it will always create restriction. So if I feel like I'm craving some chocolate, I'm going to have some chocolate, but I probably won't eat the whole bar because I don't need it. If I were to have the whole bar, okay, my body would send me signals that I just need to sleep it off, because it's a lot of sugar for my body to process. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with eating chocolate or going for the whole bar if you feel you need that. But just being aware and being in tune with your body on how it feels after that. If you choose to listen to that, your body's not going to be wanting any more chocolate for a while. Like I said, when I did that experiment, it was after a period where I'd eaten really clean, so I hadn't really eaten any of the foods that were really delicious. And my body was craving it. I really, really welcomed the cake and the chocolate and the ice cream. But after I'd eaten those things, I was done. I was okay. I didn't need any more, because I'm so now in tune with what I need. We all have this perception of, well, if I give in, I'm just not going to be able to stop eating. That's not the case. Your body is very, very clever, and it will say, okay, I've had enough. Let's rest. Let's come back to it a bit later. So again, it's just giving yourself permission to listen to your body. There will be times where you don't get it right. There will be times where you overindulge and you feel a bit rubbish after. That's okay. That's just being a human being. But if you have that ability to give yourself permission to listen to your body, then that's intuitive eating at its finest.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that when I was younger, I used to be obsessed with chocolate, and my mom would have chocolate in the fridge like all the time. And I used to eat so much of it that, like, one day I just couldn't even look at chocolate anymore. And it was like years until I ate a chocolate bar again, just because my body just refused to, because I was eating way too much of it. And yeah, I think when you listen to your body and you kind of accept it as well, and also like don't be too harsh with yourself with all these cravings that you might be having, you start to recognize when you find the right balance for yourself, which of course we're going to talk about a little bit later on. Again, we talk about intuitive eating and language and culture. So before we move on to that, I just want to quickly talk about a couple of nutrients, just as pointers that might be helpful for people. So starting with omega-3. So the brain is 60% fat and 90% of that is the compound called DHA. So children are often given oils because they are the building blocks of the brain, which help it to form structures of cells and helps the cells to communicate. So omega-3 makes up 40% of the gray matter, and gray matter is linked to overall cognitive abilities such as input from the senses, memory, learning, speech, emotional regulation, self-control, decision-making, and so on. And brain health benefits from omega-3, including reduced depression, and some studies have also found a correlation between higher levels of omega-3 and lower rates of Alzheimer's disease. However, I do want to mention here that often, mixed, the findings are quite mixed, and I'm not promoting supplements in this in this webinar at all. I'm just saying like the sort of ideas behind omega-3 as a nutrient, what it is. So my questions for Ruth about omega-3 is, where can you find this in your diet, and how much of it should be consumed, let's say, a week?
Yeah, so omega-3 is a big one, isn't it? And it depends again what type of lifestyle you lead. So if you're plant-based or vegetarian, vegan, whatever the case. For me, I eat all types of foods, so animal products as well, fish, dairy, and so it would be probably easier for me to get it through my diet. But I would always recommend 2 portions a week if you can, of some sort of oily fish, nuts and seeds, avocado as well. It's you can get omega-3 through avocados, some healthy oils as well. So salmon would always be my go-to, but you can also get it through mackerel, sardines, herring, all those types of foods. And fresh tuna is another one. I mean, the canned tuna is okay, but you don't get the same amount of healthy omegas in there. But so important for brain function, for hormone levels, anti-inflammatory purposes, good gut profile, and there's an abundance of things that omegas help with. But I would always recommend 2 portions a week if you can. 1 portion is okay, but I think the recommended is 2 portions. Yeah, but if you're struggling, I think an omega-3 supplement would never be bad for you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is vitamin B12. I'm sure many people, like many of us, have heard of this one before. It's required for the healthy functioning of our nervous system and to combat fatigue. It keeps the blood cells healthy, aids DNA production for healthier aging. It also aids the antibodies and supplies energies to neurons for communication. And it also plays a significant role in the production of serotonin, which is a mood stabilizer. And the deficiency of vitamin B12 has often been linked to mood disorders. Where can we find sources of vitamin B12 within our diet?
Yeah, so primarily in animal products, so meats, it's found in dairy products too, eggs, milk, cheese. It's in various fish products, um, but it's also in fortified cereals as well too. So if you are vegan or vegetarian or anything like that, there's lots of cereals out there that are fortified with vitamin B12. So you just have to go searching for those. I know it's not always the easiest option, um, but it's absorbed in the same rate as well. So that's always a different alternative if you are, vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk a little bit about vegans and vegetarians as well. Is there like any sort of specific nutrients that they should be looking out for, which they might be missing in their diet if they're not eating animal products, or is it just very similar to, will they naturally be able to get those from whatever diet they're on, or is there something specific they should be looking out for?
Yeah. So you can absolutely get what you need through your diet, but I think the absorption rate is slightly different. So, for example, there's quite a bit of iron in a chicken breast or a piece of meat or a piece of beef. I would absorb that quite well through the blood, but if you were to have the same amount in spinach, say, you wouldn't necessarily absorb it all. So I think it is worth seeing your doctor if you feel low in energy, for example. I mean, I don't eat too much red meat, and I really recently have suffered with energy levels. And I went to the doctor and got a blood test, and they said that my iron profile was quite low. So although I eat so much spinach every day, it just proves that theory that you don't necessarily absorb all the content of it. So I am supplementing my diet with an iron tablet. So it's just good to be aware of. I wouldn't always go, head first into supplementation. I would obviously seek your GP advice, but try and get it through your diet first. If you still don't feel that you're getting enough or getting your daily requirements, then I would go to someone, your GP, or seek out a professional that could help you with that.
Yeah, definitely. So the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on as well is vitamin D, which regulates calcium homeostasis and bone integrity within the body, but it also has an important function within the brain because it aids the function of neural and glial tissue. And there generally seems to be a deficiency of vitamin D in the Western world, especially countries that do not get a lot of sun, like here. A deficiency can increase the risk of dementia and depression, mental health complications during pregnancy, and it could also increase the risk of COVID, what has been found recently as well. Where can we get sources of vitamin D? Is there any other sources except from the sun?
Yeah, so obviously sun would be the first point of call, and it's recommended that you do try and supplement your diet through the winter months in England, just because there's so much, that there's not enough sun around, but particularly in the winter months is a bit more tricky. But you can absolutely get vitamin D through red meat. It's in egg yolk as well, mushrooms. It's in a lot of plant-based foods, walnuts, nuts and seeds in general. Yeah, it's there's vitamin D is in quite a lot of foods, but it's there's not a lot in it. There's not a lot in the foods, if that makes sense. So I think vitamin D is very underrated, and we need to definitely think about more people supplementing their diets with a vitamin D tablet. Um, just like you said there, it's needed for so many things. And it is in specific foods, but there's not a lot of it in it because the first source of it is from the sunlight. um, so yeah, it's definitely doable through the diet, but you have to work hard at it. You have to go searching for it. So I don't think a lot of people's vitamin D requirements are met every single day, and that's myself included. I have to really think, okay, I'm going to eat some eggs today just so that I get some form of vitamin D in there. Whereas, vitamin C is a little bit I don't know, it's a little bit more available, I guess. It's in the foods that we tend to eat every single day. So yeah, it's a little bit of a more tricky vitamin. But I know we're going to talk about pairings just in a second. But I think if you're adding a lot of calcium to your diet, the profile of the vitamin D can be absorbed at a higher rate. So it's not just about the amount of a specific vitamin that you're taking in, it's whether you're pairing it with another one, so the absorption rate is higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to go a little bit more into detail into the pairing? Because some people have already said in the chat about
Okay, yeah.
asked a little bit about pairing different vitamins and how to increase the absorption as well.
Absolutely. So for example, if I were to have a bowl of porridge, that would contain some vitamin B12. If I were to have a cup of tea alongside that, that would decrease the rate of the B12 absorption just because of the tannins in the tea. If I were to have a glass of orange juice with the bowl of oats, that would increase the absorption rate. So if you think of vitamin D and calcium as a married couple, one doesn't really work without the other. So although you might be getting your daily requirements of vitamin D, if you're not getting your daily requirements of calcium, then the absorption rate will be lower of the vitamin D. If you're getting the two working together, it's a win-win. Equally, if you're getting vitamin C and iron paired, that's another pairing to look at. So it's just really interesting, and it's ongoing research. But a lot of people can say, oh, I've had my daily requirement of vitamin C. Okay, but have you had your iron requirements, so that you can even put yourself in a better position to absorb all of that nutrition? So I find that sort of thing really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super fascinating, and it's things that we don't really think about really on a daily basis. It's just great to hear this and get educated about it, and to make more conscious choices of how you pair foods as well, and what kind of benefits you get from them. So I'm just conscious of timing as well, because I just want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to move on to learning to love food and the language that we have around food. So basically, often we don't really recognize how this could affect our eating habits and or how we feel about food. For example, calling pizza and burgers or cakes guilt foods. This already sets up our mindset to experience these negative emotions associated with this food, and can really cancel out the positive experience we might have by maybe once in a while indulging in them, or having these cheat days, like cheating again with activity, and makes us feel anxious. So even just calling it guilt or cheat and all of these negative things that we might have from these foods that we can even get a lot of pleasure from can be quite emotionally upsetting for us. And often these are things that we have learned through childhood, society, cultural messages, like you said before, social media as well. It can be hard to detect that there's something wrong with it, even, or that something needs to be changed about it. But we need to really start to be kinder with ourselves by reprogramming our language and really learning to love food again. And how do we spot these negative messages, or how do we kind of change our cultural ideas of these foods, and how can we really change our relationship? What tips would you give, Ruth?
Yeah, it's a really loaded question, and I wish I had more time to explore this one. I think always having a bit of a self-compassion towards yourself with food and with your choices. There may not be, you know, every single day may not be a perfect day where you can choose your foods, and it may be something on the go that you're grabbing. It may not be entirely healthy, but it's just immediate fuel. I think, speaking to yourself how you would speak to others or a loved one, actually it's that internal narrative. Oh, don't cheat on your diet because you'll feel bad after. And that there's that guilt piece. I think part of life is to experience all the foods on the planet. And that's part of culture, that's part of celebration. If you think about birthdays, Christmas, even summer, when it's nice weather and we're all getting together for barbecues, there's a lot of life experience that happens that is centered around food. So I think in those times, having compassion towards yourself, indulging a little bit, it's just about finding the balance. I think people can overcomplicate it. Just go back to basics when you're feeling overwhelmed. If you feel you can push yourself and allow yourself to, not even allow, because that's even poor choice of words, isn't it? Just go with the foods that you're craving and enjoy them. They're there to be enjoyed, and don't feel the guilt after. Just go back to your intuitive eating signals and listen to your body. Because although that tub of ice cream might have felt really great at the time, the after effects may not be worth it for you. If that's something you're willing to do, then great. I think I'm all about food freedom and respecting your body, and learning to love your body at every state that it's in as well. So I just want to say that someone said to me the other day, only loving your body when it's in optimal shape or great shape for you as an individual is like only loving your kids when they're only well behaved. Yeah. So and that really put it into perspective. You love your kids no matter what. So love your body no matter what state it's in, no matter what stage you're going through. We're going through a pandemic. It's so tough. It's so hard at the minute. My advice would be to just let your body what it needs to do. If it needs time to just be on the sofa and indulge in some, nice cookies, whatever it is, do it, because there will always be time to achieve the things you want to do with your body. There are times when you're a little bit stricter if you've got a specific event that's coming up and you want to feel your best, but that doesn't mean that you have to go into that mindset of completely cutting things out. Because let me tell you, if you start to do that, you only go down a destructive path, and then you can't get out of it. And you think, oh gosh, I've been so disciplined for 4 months. What's the 5th month going to look like? I'm just going to experience really poor mental health. I'm going to indulge. I'm going to gain some weight and all that stuff that comes along with it. So I think trying to find the balance that works for you, that will look different for everyone. Please don't go off what other people are doing. Really just work on yourself. Stay in your own lane is what I tell people. Your body, your business, and you choose how to fuel it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, intuitive eating looks different to every single person. Like you said, someone might want to eat, little snacks throughout the day. Another person might just want to have 2 or 3 meals a day, like bigger ones. Or, it really depends on how comfortable your body feels and how fast your metabolism is, because our metabolism is so unique to us as well in so many different ways.
Completely. And like I said, finding what works for you. I mean, I know for me, I need carbohydrates because I'm very active. I can't run off just proteins and fats. I've tried that, it did not work. And of course, knowing what I've been through and what I've studied and what I've learned through the process, some of my friends do keto, some of my friends do intermittent fasting. That works for them. Some people can work out on an empty stomach. That is not me. So that is not a bit of me. And I think that's okay. You don't have to do things just because other people are doing it. And I really think that is just a life lesson. I think you just have to believe in yourself, trust your body, listen to your body, listen to its signals, because nutrition is something we have to work on every single day. We're not going to wake up one day and go, I've nailed my nutrition now, I don't need to think about it, because we have to eat every single day to stay alive. So I think it's an ongoing process. Like mental health, we have to work on our mental health every single day. We have to work on our physical health every single day. We have to work on our language every single day, the relationships we have every single day. That's the same for nutrition. So there's never an end point. So of course, if you have a specific goal or an event, that might be your end point. But then I try and ask clients or try and ask people that I help, what happens after that? Where's your mind at then when you've achieved that goal? Are you setting yourself up to sort of come back down again? Try and achieve your goals, but still try and keep the balance running alongside of it, because it's important for long-term sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that we have a lot of questions that are coming in for us, and I really want to get to them as well. So I'm going to go forwards to Ruth's practical tips, so you can all maybe take a picture of them and feel like you can take them home with you. But yeah, basically, Ruth, do you just want to quickly talk a little bit about these practical tips and why you chose them?
Yeah. So I think the basis of these tips really is not to overcomplicate it. So I know there's a lot on there and there's a lot of tips to take in and to take away and process. But I think, if you're thinking about trying to focus on, home cooking, for example, just try and have 5 staple recipes to start off with, so you don't feel so overwhelmed. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to start my healthy living now, everything's going to be great. Um, but it's planning for, okay, I'm having a day where I don't feel like cooking. Can I just pull on something that I've already got in the cupboard? Do I have, store cupboard ingredients, rice, pasta, beans? Can I make something healthy out of that? So it's just having something that you can sort of pull out of your hat. I would always say, have 5 staple recipes that you can pull on. Freezing is a great tip. So if you're batch cooking, if you're having a busy week, maybe try and meal prep a little bit. Monitoring hydration levels is a big one. So I think there's so much out there at the minute where people are saying, 3 liters, 4 liters, 5 liters, a gallon. And it's like, that's individual. If I were to drink 2 gallons a day, I would never be off the toilet. Perhaps an overshare there. But I know people that can drink so much and other people can't. It's whatever way you feel best. So I know for me, roughly 2 liters of water per day, and then tea on top, herbal teas or whatever. That's the level of comfort that brings me happiness and I can function well on. For other people, it might be more. For other people, it might be less. So again, it's just finding your groove with that. Understanding your hunger levels is just practicing intuitive eating. So ask yourself before you're about to eat a meal, how hungry are you? Are you absolutely ravenous? So 0 on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being absolutely ravenous and 10 being completely stuffed. If you're ravenous, then thinking about portion control and then having another snack a few hours later. If you're kind of full, just thinking about maybe having a little bit of a snack. And that's trial and error. You won't always get that right. But I think really trying to find your own levels of comfort with intuitive eating. Other people like to follow a more structured plan. So if you are following keto or caveman diet, whatever it is that works for you, great. As long as you feel that you're getting all the nutrients that you need. Focusing on nutrients rather than calories, I think, is a big one. Being mindful eating, so really slowing the process of eating a meal down. It really aids digestion. It can help you interact with loved ones, not doing any mindless scrolling on your phone, which is so easy, isn't it? You just sort of sat there eating and you're on your phone. Actually engaging with the meal that you're consuming. Timings is a big one as well for me. I think if people are practicing intermittent fasting, then you're trying to consume the majority of your calories or your meals in a specific window of time. That can impact on your digestive system. If that works for you, great. If not, you may want to think about altering the timings that you're eating. Recovery, rest and sleep. So I think a lot of people, they think health and well-being is just nutrition and exercise, and it's so much more than that. It's about monitoring your stress levels, your hormones, your sleep. All of those things can really impact on your overall health and well-being. So recognizing when you need to rest. I think we're all conditioned to sort of, there's that buzzword, on the grind, grafting all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just recognizing when you need to take a break, take the pressure off a little bit and have a rest, and really just try and get to bed a bit earlier, and and do all the things you know that are good for you in terms of that. And yeah, just thinking about breaking down the foods. Are they all unhealthy? Where have those rules come from? You have the right to make your own decisions around what types of food you choose to fuel yourself with. I would just say, if you're getting a general well-balanced diet, you're on the right track. Try not to be perfect with your diet is another one of my takeaway messages for you. Try not to be perfect, because that will never happen, and you'll just set yourself up to fail, and then you'll get in that negative mindset of thinking, I'm not good enough. Yeah, so we don't want to create that. We just want to be making good decisions, good choices when we can, and when we can't, being at peace with that. So yeah, a lot of tips to take away, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, it's really good to have all these different tips, and we also have quite a few questions that have come into us. So I'm going to start because I saw that some of them are in the chat box and not many in the Q&A box. I'll start with the Q&A box, and then I'll jump over to the chat box in a second. I'm hoping to answer as many as possible. I know it's already 5 o'clock, so I hope you guys still have a little bit of time to hear Ruth's answers for these questions as well. So one of the questions is that I heard someone say you should eat your protein. I have a blended protein shake every day with oats and bananas. Do you get less nutrients from shakes than from solid foods?
So I wouldn't say you get less nutrition. I think the difference, if you're, say for example, having a juice rather than a smoothie, if you're juicing the fruits, you won't get all the fiber and things like that. But if you're just talking about a protein shake with oats, it's the same. The absorption rate would be the same, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And it's great for convenience. You know, if you're very active, or if you're on the go a lot of the time, I think that's a great suggestion to sort of blend it all up and do it that way. But I think if you're, you know, trying to get your greens in, try to not juice all your fruits, because you're losing a lot of nutrition if you do it that way. So it will just sort of turn into the simple sugars, and you won't be getting that fiber in there to help break down the sugars. So I know some people that say, oh, I'm getting all my you know, my 5 a day, but I'm just blending them all up. If you're doing fruits and vegetables, you're more likely to absorb all the nutrients. If you're just doing fruit, then you'd be missing out on quite a lot of the fiber content that I mentioned. So I would just be aware of that. But if we're just talking protein shakes with oats and bananas and things like that, then I think that's absolutely fine, in my opinion.
Yeah. They also asked another question, because they don't eat a lot of milk or cheese. What other calcium sources can they get from the diet?
Yeah, so calcium is in quite a lot of food. So it's in a lot of vegetables, it's in broccoli. You know, if you're having a meal that does contain a side salad, you're probably getting a lot of it there. So red bell peppers, spinach, kale, and things like that, really nutrient dense foods that do naturally contain calcium. It's not the sources that are really, really high in them. So milk, cheese, things like that. But you can absolutely obtain them through your diet, through various vegetables. It's in, you know, plant-based milks as well. It's in fortified breakfast cereals. So I think vitamin C, I mean, if you're struggling, I always tend to start off my day with warm water and lemon. So I'm getting a hit of vitamin C. And if I'm pairing calcium with vitamin D, and if you're thinking about the pairings, if you're getting enough calcium and enough vitamin D, then the absorption rate will be great anyway. Don't just focus on one. Focus on a few different ones that will help the absorption rate overall, I would say. But calcium is in a lot of foods that you wouldn't think. So if you're having some nuts and seeds in there too, it's in those. So yeah, there's lots of other tips, but I'm happy to sort of send through a little bit of a cheat sheet with all these foods on, if that would help.
Yeah, I think some people have asked if there's like maybe a website that they can go on, or maybe some tools that they can use, or cheat sheets that they could use. So maybe if you do have something, you can send it over, and maybe we can send it over to all of the people who signed up to this webinar, so
Great.
we have all this information available to them. Another question is, why is coffee bad for you?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it was bad. I can understand from the perspective of caffeine. Um, if you don't tolerate caffeine well, it won't be suiting you. Um, but caffeine contains antioxidants, um, and coffee specifically contains antioxidants, and so I wouldn't necessarily pin it as being bad. So that's an interesting reflection there, from whoever asked the question. But I think if you have been diagnosed with a specific condition that coffee does affect, then of course don't have it within your diet. But I do think there's other properties that it does have that can be helpful too. So for example, chocolate, people go, oh, dark chocolate's bad for you, it contains a lot of sugar. Dark chocolate also contains magnesium, antioxidants. So it's finding the positives in them as well. So not always, focusing on the foods that you deem are bad. There's always going to be some good properties in them too. But if you have been diagnosed with a specific condition, that says, stay away from coffee or caffeine, then of course don't have it. But it's just interesting to think of the language we use around specific foods, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's always mixed messages, and even when you talk about fortified cereals, often people are like, "Oh, like cereals have too much sugar in them. Why are you, recommending them?" So it's always like, is it good? Is it bad? Everyone is always saying something different.
Yeah, yeah. And the truth is, you're never going to get it perfect. Okay, so it's never going to be you're going to absorb all the nutrition every single day, and that can be because of you're a bit more stressed that day, or you haven't had great sleep, or your hormone, it's that time of the month, or whatever the reason is. You won't always be absorbing all the nutrition every single day. So just keep that in mind. Um, I think foods have different things that they offer. So it's just interesting to think about some of the language that you place around specific foods and nutrients.
Yeah. And research findings are usually mixed as well, so we can't say
Absolutely,
one thing.
absolutely.
Yeah. So somebody said, I've often found myself finishing work late and opting for nutritionally poor food. I can't be bothered to go to the supermarket. Do you have any recipes to recommend with cupboard staples?
Yes, I actually have a full list of that because that's something I'm doing at work as well. I'm helping people and helping clients on and just nail a few easy go-to recipes with stuff that you've already got in the cupboards. So again, I'm happy to pass those on to you, Elissa, and you can send them out to the people who have attended today to the webinar. But yeah, I think people worry about making a healthy meal and it to be quick and easy and simple, but it's still going to provide them with a good nutrient profile. So I totally understand that notion of it's been a long day, you're tired, you don't want to be stood over a stove for hours trying to rustle up something really healthy, but there are foods that you can whip up within 15 minutes that will still serve their purpose and give you what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to send those over to everyone
Yeah.
who signed up. So like those sheets and little meal plans and everything. Somebody asked, what is the advice about food replacement? For instance, milkshake, slimming fast, or Herbalife? Um, Advice, I don't like, maybe the question is not clear enough.
Yeah. So
Um,
in terms of do I recommend them or Yeah, I mean,
Maybe,
sorry, Elissa.
yeah, yeah. Maybe they mean like if you would recommend them or if they are good for you. Or
So I wouldn't personally recommend those. Um, I know they're very convenient. I know they may fit in with other people's lifestyles a bit better than others, but I don't believe that that's the most sustainable choice. So we always want to make sure that we're getting our nutrients from our food. We are creating healthy relationships with our food. We're not just thinking, oh, it's okay, I can miss lunch because I've got a shake. Once in a while, that's okay, but I think if you're doing that because you're wanting to reach a specific goal, there are other healthier ways to do that. And it's just about spending time on figuring out what that is. I would always say whatever works for you, but I think in terms of shakes, meal replacements, there's always a better option, in my opinion. That's what I would say about that. Yeah.
yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm having a lot of questions coming in, and I'm hoping that we can get to as many as possible. I think we're gonna go on for another 5 minutes, if that's okay with you, Ruth.
Yeah, of
And then
course.
if more questions that people have, to just my email address, and I will forward them on to Ruth. It's Elissa@qk.com, and be able to answer them. We can be able to answer it all. One of the things is I'm asked to eat low carb, which I'm getting used to. I'm also told to avoid certain fruits, but what veg are better used instead?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling with connection, Elissa. I missed that one.
So this person said that they're on a low carb diet at the moment because they're diabetic.
Okay.
They're told to avoid certain fruits.
Yeah.
So what would be better used instead? So yeah.
So I'm assuming certain fruits mean the higher GI profile, so the higher sugar profile. So fruits, for example, such as pineapple, melon, mango, those types of fruits have quite a high sugar profile. I would come back to your berries, so blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, anything like that that's going to contain a lower GI. So that means that it won't necessarily spike your blood sugar and then have a big come down. So if you're adding in any like berries, apples as well are a good option, oranges, lemons, just those types of fruits that keep your blood sugar a little bit more stable than the higher sugar ones. So again, I've got some options available if you want me to send them across to you, but I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because when you are diagnosed with a condition, there are specific foods that you need to stay away from, and perhaps the simple carbohydrates such as your white options, white pasta, white rice, white bread, those have a little bit more sugar in them than the brown options. So the brown options contain more fiber, which has a better impact on your blood sugar. So if you are diabetic, they do recommend that. So it's tricky, isn't it, when you're being told to sort of cut out specific things because of your condition, which I appreciate. That is really difficult. But I think with the fruit, you can absolutely have fruit depending on if it's type 1 or type 2. If it's type 2 diabetic, then the lower sugar GI fruits are recommended. You can still have a well-balanced diet with those. If you're having a bowl of oats in the morning, just whack a few blueberries on there. It's going to contain lots of antioxidants. It's not going to suddenly spike your blood sugar. So it's going to keep your mood stable as well, which is going to be really important if you're trying to keep that, in check. So that would be my answer to that one. I hope that's been useful.
Yeah, thank you. I think that answers the question. I hope it does. But yeah, so another question is that you mentioned that malnutrition can damage our cognitive function day after day. Can we reverse this entirely with a well balanced diet, or is any damage that has occurred not reversible?
Yeah, we can absolutely reverse it. Yeah, and that's the great thing. That's the exciting thing about changing your diet and changing your nutrition. So, you can be feeding yourself a lot of foods, but you can also be malnourished as well. So it just depends on the types of foods you're choosing to fuel yourself with. Um, so I think having an overall well-balanced diet, you can absolutely reverse that malnutrition. Um, Depending on if you have any food intolerances, I would always recommend including um, all food groups. So if you've got a good balance of carbohydrates in there, proteins, healthy fats, fiber, essential vitamins and minerals, then all those things are going to help um, reverse that malnutrition. So even if you've been, if even if you've had a not so great diet over the years, you can absolutely reverse that and turn that around. But it would be a longer process. So I think the key thing there is just to stick with it, just to trust the process and just be kind to yourself during it. It doesn't mean that you have to stick to a clean diet every single day. If you mess up, that's it. It's not going to work. Nutrition doesn't work like that. So even if you're just beginning, it's something. Even if you're adding in some antioxidants, even if you're adding in some healthy fats, it's not always necessarily about taking things away. Even if you're adding some more nutrients in there, it's better than nothing. So I'd start off small, start off slow, and again, my mantra: just find what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ruth. I think I'm going to end this webinar here today then. I'm sorry that we didn't get to manage to get to all of the questions, but definitely send them to elissa@thrive.uk.com. I'll write that into the chat. And then I can refer that on to Ruth later on. And also Ruth will send me all of her tips as well. Sorry, Elissa@thrive.uk.com. Okay, yeah. So she's going to send me all of her tips as well, and the meals, the cupboard stable meals that she's putting together for everyone. And yeah, I'll be able to send them over to whoever signed up to this webinar. And I hope that this was informative. And yeah, thank you so much to Ruth for your time, and your tips were amazing as well. And I love having you with us every time, because the conversation is always really, really good.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who stayed on to listen to me. And I hope that you found the session really useful, and hope that you were able to take away some tips and tricks. So if anyone is wanting any further advice or support with their nutrition, then I'm happy to take that forward. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.